Hello, one and all, and welcome to episode 61 of Opposite Field, Bleeding Your Colors' baseball podcast. I am Trevor, as always, joined by Colin. How are you doing this evening, my good friend?
Doing good, doing good. Happy opening day.
Absolutely. As I fade into the Dodgers logo, as the time goes on, I'm like Homer Simpson going into the bush. But yeah, it's actual opening day. Not this weird Soul Series Korea gambling saga opening day that was last week, but we're and not all of it came to pass because Mother Nature decided to be a bit of a stick in the mud. But
Yeah,
yeah, we kind of got some things to talk about, and we're if you watched last week, we are going to also go with that final bit of predictions. We did all our divisions, all of that stuff. We're gonna go for the individual awards this week. We're going to do the MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, and Manager of the Year in both leagues, and then we're kind of just gonna talk about the day, the season ahead, and that's yeah, kind of the informal game plan for this evening.
yeah.
So yeah, in terms of the day's events, I don't think there was much in the way of big shocks. Did anything really catch your eye from the games that happened this afternoon into this evening?
No, they were pretty much what I thought they would be. Um, the only caveat being the Astros uh, blowing blowing it to the Yankees, and
Yeah, and the Giants kind of fell into that same pitfall too, where they blew a late lead to the Padres. But it's something where people kind of think that those teams are going to kind of take scalps off one another over the course of the year, and it's just this is the first of many times where uh, lots of relievers between those two teams look very pedestrian.
yeah, yep. Um, I think the only not really surprised, but happy for opening day victory is the Pirates extra inning win against the Marlins. Um, just because you know I like to feel good about the Pirates when they win.
You, my big thing with the Pirates is that you got to see the bullpen in its I'd like to say in all its glory, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of guys that are in that pen that even the most staunch of dynasty league fantasy player would have never heard of before. And the fact that they were able to kind of go the better part of half of what happened, I think Keller went. Did he even get 6 innings? Five and 2/3. But
Yeah,
the
yeah,
fact that they
it
were
was
able
short.
to go 6+ innings of shutout baseball was good for them and like we said last week, we none of us picked the Pirates to get anywhere, but that is a vision that can be had by pretty much anybody because it's the weakest in baseball.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Well, the
uh,
AL Central may may be in play
what
for that as well, but
the the NL Central is definitely stronger than the AL Central, and it's not saying much, but like you go one for one. The Cubs
yeah,
are better than
that's
any of the
that's true.
AL
That's
team.
true.
The
That's true.
Cardinals are better than the AL.
I got a little
But
bit ahead of myself.
but I think that we didn't really touch on the Pirates last week for reasons of there are better teams in
They're
that
the
division
Pirates.
than the Pirates. However, I was looking at their roster today, um, and if they can get some luck and healthy, I don't see why they couldn't at least compete.
Yeah, it's a better lineup than you'd think.
Hmm.
for what the because they didn't make much in the way of noise in terms of off-season signings. Like Roddy Tellers was like their big pickup, but they got some guys that are still hanging around that could potentially be their all-star representative if you're looking for
I,
that.
I mean, look. If here's why I think the Pirates are like not, or I should say, why the front end for Pittsburgh doesn't consider themselves a joke team. Because if that was the case, Brendan Reynolds would not be on the team anymore. Brian Reynolds would not be on the team anymore, and they extended him. You know, I don't think Mitch Keller is going anywhere. I know that he's always a name that pops up around the trade deadline and off season, but if they're in some kind of a wild card run, he ain't going anywhere either. And I think the most important thing for Pittsburgh to be successful this year is I think that their bullpen has to be close to phenomenal all year. Um, guys like Chapman, if he can somehow squeeze out whatever's left of him um, to help that bullpen and help out some of the younger guys in there. Um, so it's
Bednar
going to be,
Bednar is a big guy for them. They have to
yeah,
really lean on him. They
yep.
didn't have to use him today, but they'll. He's a guy that has to kind of. He's not going to get a lot of chances, but make the best of the ones that he gets.
And speaking of, squeezing any kind of ounce of juice left in a player, I think that having, some of the older guys in that club can really help um,
Yeah,
that ball club.
bringing Kutch back was big.
Yeah, bringing him back. And I really like O'Neal Cruz. I don't know how you feel about him. Um, I think that he's a good young player who has the potential to be really good. And I just would hate for Pittsburgh to just be a farm system for other teams to pick off of, like they have been for so many years. And so you want to see guys like Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz kind of carry that team to some kind of resemblance.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
But now that we've got opening day out of the way, and uh, my team were resounding victors, we'll get to your team, who is going to play the late game this evening. They are in Seattle,
yep,
and I think more than anything, we need to talk about just how this past week
yeah,
in terms of free agency went, and overall just the offseason for the Red Sox
yeah.
went. And I'll kind of give you the floor to not necessarily rant, but kind of put all your thoughts in order with how things went and how you particularly thought things could have gone differently, and how
Yeah.
you would have felt differently about your team's prospects coming into the season
Mhm.
had they just done a couple things differently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. We can get to my team in a little bit. Just because I think that the Red Sox are ironically, and the baseball world as well as the Netflix audience will see just how big of a year it's going to be for the Boston Red Sox, and in my opinion, not a good way.
Yeah, and I looking at the notes that we put together heading into this, kind of a former player of theirs and one that kind of was the one that got away this off season
Yeah.
is the other late game, and that is Arizona
Yep.
coming off of their World Series appearance. They're a team that a lot of people are trying to debate whether or not it's going to be the Padres that provide the biggest challenge to the Dodgers or the Giants. Now the fact that they got Blake Snell and they're starting to get a little bit healthy. A lot of people have kind of just discounted Arizona as a team that is going to just they had their quote unquote Rocktober, and now they're going to kind of just fall back to the wayside. I don't necessarily think that's the case because they've reinforced all the positives that they had from last year. They knew that they had to improve the pitching staff, which they went and did. They made sure they kept all their young guys in-house in terms of the lineup. So I don't think there's any reason to really discount Arizona as a force in the National League, even though I picked them third in the division. In the NL West, that could still make you like a 88 to 90 win team and kind of firmly just put you in the playoffs, just because I think the Central is not going to get more than one team. In the East, I don't think you're going to get anybody past Atlanta or Philadelphia, barring massive injuries. What do you think about the Diamondbacks heading into this season?
So last week I talked a lot about the rotation for the San Francisco Giants and how I thought that was going to be a real key to being a threat to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Um, and after this past week, the other day move that they did that we'll talk about in a minute, I went back and kind of looked at the Arizona Diamondbacks off season that it was. And they made moves that I think not only is obviously helps out the defending NL champions, but I think the Arizona Diamondbacks are the legitimate threat to the Los Angeles Dodgers. I am not as high on the San Diego Padres as you are. I just think that they somehow trip over their own feet. And they're a very good team, don't get me wrong. But again, without Blake Snell, we talked about it for years back in the 2020 season when they were starting to put together this massive team, and so on and so forth. They depleted their entire farm system for guys like Mike Clevenger, not there anymore. Blake Snell, not there anymore. You know, so like the guys that are left are Joe Musgrove, who, I mean,
He's up and down.
he's up and down. Hey, excuse me. Hey, uh, you know, I think that the Xander Bogaerts signing was honestly out of left field, and I think that was more of a win now mentality for San Diego. And now they don't have Juan Soto anymore. They don't have Blake Snell anymore. They don't have a lot of these guys anymore. Uh, can Tatis Jr. get back to, um, what he was a few years ago? I used to think he was the best player in baseball. I don't know if that's true anymore. Um, Manny Machado, is he still playing at a high level? I know that he's gotten off to a pretty decent start, but beyond that, I just don't know about the Padres going forward. But the reason I bring that up is because, looking at the Arizona Diamondbacks move, they signed Eduardo Rodriguez, who opted out of his big contract with the Detroit Tigers, and as a Red Sox fan, who is Erod played for many years, he is a solid number two, number three guy. He is going to be, I don't know where he is in the rotation for Arizona, but if you put him behind Zach Gallen, it's a pretty good 1-2 right there, right? So
Yeah.
then, Randall Grichuk, not bad, not a bad player, solid all around. I mean, he had some moments with Toronto. Um, you know, um, Not bad. Another former Toronto Blue Jays, uh, Lawrence Gurriel Jr. Also, he's got a bat, and then I think one of those moves that is going to be underrated is the signing of Jock Peterson, who I think will be a big help as well for the offense.
Yeah, in trading for Eugenio Suarez, a guy that he's not going to hit for a great average, but is a guy that can hit home runs, and on a team where they do put a bunch of guys on base, like you said, with Gurriel and like Corbin Carroll, having a guy that is a bopper back there, that it's not going to be all reliant on Christian Walker to knock everybody in, is going to be a huge help for them, I think. But you bring up Erod and you bring up Gallon as kind of that 1-2, getting a guy that was originally looking for a huge boatload of money on a 1-year deal and getting Jordan Montgomery, I think is going to be really big for them, because he's coming in. He's not going to be asked to be the franchise savior, and he's just kind of going to go and just pitch. It seems simplistic to say that you're just going to ask a guy that you paid $25 million to just go pitch, just go have some fun. But I think if you're, with the way that the offseason shook out for especially Scott Boras clients, there's a lot that can be said with how many of them ended up in the NL West because of just how big of an arms race this division has become.
Yeah.
And just how many teams are willing to just go in for it. And yeah, I think Colorado is obviously just been left behind.
Yeah.
But the other 4 teams are all you can make a decent argument for any of the 4 teams to make a deep playoff run. I think we all think that the Dodgers are going to win the division just because of how the season just goes.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be surprised if any of the other 4 teams did what Arizona did last year.
The only issue with the NL West that I have in terms of the 4 teams is that, if everything stays according and everyone's healthy and all that stuff, I still think that the Dodgers are here and everyone else is a couple feet below them. Not inches, feet. Which is, it's more of a 3-team race for those wild card spots unless something unforeseen happens to the Dodgers. It's really a 3-team race for the wild cards. However, what I will say, and maybe you can attest to this as well, is that when these divisional teams play the Dodgers, they play them very well, and they always give each other problems. And I think that the Dodgers, all right, let me ask you, do you think the Dodgers took the Diamondbacks seriously in October last year?
No, and I think that level of complacency is what has fucked the Dodgers over many a times in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of take where they are for granted, and when they're a team that's going and winning 100 games and getting bounced in the first round.
Yeah,
it's just not a good look. And now with the money that they spent, that's not going to fly this year.
Nope.
So it's even more important for them to go into the playoffs at
anything
strength as they can.
Anything less than a World Series is a disappointment. Am I wrong?
I think this year, if they don't make the World Series,
yeah,
it's going to be a significant disappointment, and heads are going to roll. I don't think this year is win or bust.
Okay.
Even regardless with how much just endless amounts of money they spent, over $1 billion on 2 players, deferrals aside. I don't think it's win or bust, but
Okay.
it is World Series or bust. It is get to the World Series, or there's going to be questions that are asked and heads are going to roll.
Okay. So then I will ask you this question: is it Dave Roberts' last season as Dodger manager?
I don't think so
Okay.
because I think he has too much credit built up with the ownership
Hmm.
and with kind of just that brain trust in the front office.
Okay.
I think he's a guy that is going to be able to orchestrate his own exit, where he's not going to get unless it is an absolute mess, where they
Okay.
get into the playoffs and
And it's a meltdown.
yeah, like they get swept by like Cincinnati or something like that.
Okay.
They get embarrassed.
Okay.
But if it's something where they get in and they lose in the NLCS in like 7 games to Atlanta or something like that,
Yep.
I think there's going to be questions asked and there's going to be legitimate inquiries into if talented managers are become available on the market. There's going to be discussions had as to whether or not they can do better than Roberts can. But I don't think it's going to be something where they are trying to just throw him onto the guillotine immediately. They're
Okay.
going to do their due diligence, but I don't think it's something where they're just going to absolutely just be done with him if they don't win the World Series.
Okay. All right. Um. But yeah. So back to Arizona real fast. The Montgomery thing is what's so great about this signing for Arizona. I think is exactly what you said, where Jordan Montgomery does not have to be a number one, like he was looked at with the Red Sox or possibly the Yankees with Garrett Cole being injured, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about that
And
in a little bit.
they just put him on the 60-day IL.
Yeah. So, but he can be a number three. He can be a number four, and that's just fine. Because you know what? Those are kind of the games you're gonna have to win in the series, in the season, from your number three and number four starters, from your number rather than your number one. Because you're kind of almost expecting Zach Gallen to go out there and win, 12,
Yeah.
15 games.
Go like 15-5. Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of, I think there's a good chance if his team is talented enough and he gets the run support, I could see Erod winning 14 games with that team. His ERA might be a little high, but I could see him winning 14 games with them.
Yeah, because he can go deep enough into games
Yeah,
so that will put him in line to get some more wins than
yeah.
you'd think that he would have gotten in Detroit. I agree.
But I do think that Arizona now leapfrogs the uh, San Diego and San Francisco as much as I talked up San Francisco last week um, to challenge the Dodgers. They won't win, obviously, we know that. But second place, I could see the Diamondbacks being in second place and one of the wild card
And
teams.
that's all you need in that division.
Yeah,
With the way the playoffs have gone these past few years,
yeah.
it's kind of just
Just get in, get in. That's all
get
you
in,
need to do.
and let your pitchers pitch.
Hmm. And I could
Okay,
see that from Arizona.
I I'm it kind of scares me how much seeing like a Merrill Kelly go in a game 4 where it's like last year they were trying to put him up against the like a 2 and you're just going, oh, that's just not going to go well for you.
Right.
And yeah, Rodriguez and Montgomery, if you look at it in just like an overall height vacuum, those aren't guys that are really going to move the needle. But in a series where you just need, and especially Montgomery coming from one where he proved that he didn't shy away from the big
And he
stage.
and he beat your team in the World Series.
Yeah, yeah, it's the if you can't be
Beat him, join. Yeah,
the reverse of can't beat them, join them.
yeah.
Oh, they beat us, so let's go poach their guy.
And it's funny too because like to me and you, uh, Jordan Montgomery and Erod are not world beaters, but I would be very excited and hyped if I'm an Arizona Diamondbacks fan waking up today for this season.
Yeah, and we'll see later this evening how
How they do, yeah.
they do in their opener
Yep.
against the the aforementioned in uh, under under let's say underserved Rockies because nobody really thinks that they're going to do much of anything.
No.
But we'll move across the leagues real quick, and I will let you get your just your Boston Red Sox woozah out, and then we will talk a little bit more about the hierarchy of the AL East. Then we'll get into our award picks.
Sure. Okay. All right. So it's not going to be a typical rant because I'm just, it's just a waste of
It's kind of
time.
just gotten beaten out of you
Yeah.
if we're being
What I
perfectly
will
honest.
say this is that I will not be watching the Red Sox this year. I will not be going to any games. Uh, I am not going to give them any money because they don't deserve it. And if you are a Red Sox fan, you should not too. And if they somehow get into the playoffs, I will watch. And if you're saying that, uh, you know, no, that's just bandwagon, support your team, no. I say the opposite. Because if you're going to support this team through and through the bad, then you're giving John Henry and the Fenway group exactly what they want, which is they'll put a terrible team on the field, and no matter what, you'll support them. So who cares what they do? So that's why you shouldn't care, or you should care what they do, which is nothing. If the fact that they couldn't give $25 million was too expensive for the Boston Red Sox, that's where we're at right now. And in 7 years, or no, in 10 years, they finished last place 7 times. That is absurd for the Red Sox to be a $200 million plus payroll to finish in dead last 7 times in 10 years. And I think that the players know that it's not fun playing there. And I think that Alex Cord definitely is out. I don't care what.
Yeah, they won't even negotiate with him.
No, he's done. He might as well have left last year because I'm sure he thought he was going to get fired, and they didn't fire him because the Red Sox don't want to pay another manager money. So it's easier to just keep the guy for one more year than
Yeah,
to go look for someone. Um, so but like again, we don't have time for me to get into the Red Sox, but like one of the biggest and glaring things about this team is you bring in someone like Heim Bloom, who came from the Tampa Bay organization and was his whole kind of like demeanor about him was that he built good farm systems. He's able to get good young players and develop them in Tampa Bay. So he comes to the Red Sox. He doesn't do anything
yeah.
like at all except for signing uh, Rafael Devers to a 13-year contract or 11-year contract. That was it. He spent $300 million once to Rafael Devers. Anyway, so he's meant to be this guy to replace your depleted farm system that Dave Roberts ripped apart to win a World Series in 2018. Whatever. Well, if that's the case, then why did the Red Sox rank dead last in minor league pitching? There is nobody coming through that door for that rotation in the next 5 to 10 years.
Cue the
There's,
Rick Pitino.
there's nobody coming through that door.
Pedro
It,
Martinez isn't walking through
he's
that
not.
door.
No, he's not.
The attitude in this town stinks.
It's 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 insulting to me. And you know what's even more insulting is that they lied to us. They said that they were in on on all these guys. Said, how do you lose Teoscar Hernandez? How do you lose Jordan Montgomery? How do you lose all these guys because you don't want to pay them what they're asking for? Like the it's just lie after lie after lie. And then on top of it, you find out in the offseason that John Henry is trying to buy a piece of the PGA Tour. So he doesn't even care about the Red Sox. So why should I care about the Red Sox? And, Tom Warner's up there uh, saying, oh, we're going to go full throttle. It's going to be an awesome off
Those,
season.
yeah.
Like, really? And so, point is that I really feel bad for Craig Birdwell because he is not doing anything. He is just a puppet to put there to say, we have a general manager, but we're going to do most of the work, you know? And why even bring Theo back? What was the point of that? For what? To help your NASCAR team? Like, because that's what he's doing. He's overseeing other things. Why? And so it's just another season of anger, disappointment. They're gonna lose. Oh, they're gonna win. I'd say no more than 75 games this year. And they'll be in last place again. And there's one bright spot, I think, and that's the kid pitching tonight, Brian Bello. If Bello can somehow be the only bright spot for this team, then kudos to you. But like the Garrett Whitlock, like no idea where to put him, so let's put him in the rotation. That makes no sense. The
Yeah.
Cutter Crawford, he sucks. Like, 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 ah, Nick Pavetta had a fucking 1 ERA in the bullpen and like a 5 ERA as a starter, but he's starting tomorrow night. So, that's where we're at. And no one knows what's going on. Trevor Story is going to go down as one of the most overrated players ever because he can't hit his weight outside of Colorado. It's just thing after thing after thing. And it all harkens back to the Mookie Betts trade because that's when this tailspin started. Because, what, let me ask you, where's Jeter Downs? Where is he right now? Nowhere.
Uh,
He got cut
last
by 4 teams.
last time I saw he was getting like DFA'd by Washington.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay, who's the other guy? Verdugo? Not even on the team anymore because he couldn't get along with Alex Cora. So, there you go. I always thought Verdugo was a little overrated, but everyone loved him. And meanwhile, Mookie Betts is one of the best players in baseball, and you didn't want to pay him the money, so you got rid of him for nothing. So it's just time and time. There is no investment in this team anymore, you know? And I'd be curious to know, as an outsider, what you think the Red Sox are.
It's so odd because there is an inherent. I don't think they're a team that is trying to tank because we've talked about how Baltimore had no, but we've talked about how Baltimore built their what they're at right now as as what you've referred to as kind of like a burgeoning potential dynasty with just the amount of talent that they've produced through the draft in the minor leagues, plus with the trades they've been able to make.
But the Red Sox aren't doing that, though.
But that's what I'm saying. Like there is tons of stuff there that they could work with to kind of, if they want to really just hit the reset button and kind of just really own up to it and go, hey, these next couple of years are going to be rough. But when you get guys like Tom Werner that come out and like, no, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to go full. And the full throttle is, I think that is the one line that both
it's a meme at this point.
Yeah, the local radio, all the Red Sox fan pages have really just picked up on because it is something where it's so tone deaf. Like everybody knows that you're full of shit,
Yeah.
and that you're not going to do anything resembling massive overhauls. You're going to try to put band-aids on bullet wounds. You're bringing in guys like Chase Anderson, who's on like his 6th team in 6 years,
How about
and being
that?
like, this is going to be your number 3 starter.
How about that? How about that? How about the fact that they have no self-awareness of what's going on in the league? So you're gonna patch on Jordan Montgomery, which okay, fine. At the time, no one was getting given Jordan Montgomery what Scott Boras wanted to give him. Okay, I will accept that. So let's forget about the 1 year from Arizona for now.
Yeah,
Okay, let's just focus on what did you think he was asking for? Because it was never clear what he was. I think I read something about what was it, 7 years, 180 maybe, something like
yeah.
that.
He wanted to shade under 30 million for 6 or 7 years.
Okay, so let's just go with that and um, forget the 1 year thing for now. All right, so I get it. You're looking at it, you're like, well, no one else is going to pay for this guy. Why are we going to pay for him? Even though you have no pitching and you need to get someone. Fine. So instead, you go and you throw money at Lucas Giolito, who had an ERA of almost 5.5 with the Angels, who had a health record of not, or had a track record of not
Yeah.
being healthy, and signing him, who makes one start in spring training before that elbow injury, which is another big issue with the Red Sox, is that their medical staff is terrible because every time they sign somebody who has a history of injuries, they never catch it, and that person hurt for years because of Chris Sale. Okay, which brings me to my next point. So you sign Lucas Giolito, you don't sign Jordan Montgomery, but you say Lucas Giolito is going to be that bridge gap from this year to whatever you're going to do next year. Which, by the way, let me remind you, their minor league pitching staff is garbage. There's no one that's coming up. So you're going to get rid of Chris Sale, who, okay, let's be fair, it was his time to go. Chris Sale was not helping anybody. But guess what? You could use Chris Sale right now, couldn't you? So why not just keep him? Because what's the point? If you're already telling your fan this is what the product is, then why even bother making moves? Okay? And real quick, let me just go down the list of their lineup. Jared Durant. You think he's a good player?
And he's decent. He's
No. He's
he's a good
terrible.
he's a good piece on a good team, but
Yeah.
he's
Not on
he's
a
not
bad
going to
team.
do much on a bad team.
Rafael Devers. Is he a good player?
Yeah,
Yeah. Bad defensive player, but he's a good player, right?
yeah.
Okay. Trevor Story.
I'd say past it.
Okay. Tristan Cassis. Or Cassis.
Too inconsistent.
Yep. O'Neill. Former Tyler O'Neill from the
Hurt,
Cardinals.
hurt all the time.
All the time. Yoshida.
Uh, Remains to be seen. I think he's a decent enough. He had a decent enough rookie year where you can have at least a little bit of hope.
Okay. Rafaela. You think he's going to be good?
No,
No. Me neither. He's starting tonight.
he's
Okay. Moving on. Second base. Emmanuel Valdez.
yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. Never even heard of the guy. This is my team. Okay? Oh, he's playing second base. Let me just give you a little thing. They got a second baseman for Chris Sale who is hurt. The only person who's left from Mookie Betts is the starting catcher tonight, Connor Wong. You know what Connor Wong is? He's a backup on any other ball club. As well as Reese McGuire, who's a backup on any other ball club. Those are your catchers. And by the way, They're not good play callers either.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty
it's a
bleak.
mess. It's a mess. Kenley Jansen, how is he still on the team? He's the closer.
Yeah,
It's a
because
mess.
he was better. He was better than anybody else that they could
It is a
get.
mess. And the fact that Tom Warner, because you know with Tom Warner, because he's got connections to Hollywood, the fact that he signed his team up for to be exposed from Netflix is going to make the John Henry and them look real bad when this team's losing 4 or 5 games a week.
And I think with him, that it's just that hubris of there's no self awareness that they're going to be as bad as they are.
No.
He's just like, oh no, this is going to be great, and everybody's going to see us rise from the ashes, and you're like, no, dog. Have you seen that division?
And the worst part about it is that it's going to fall on deaf ears because no matter how bad they are, John Henry is so stubborn that he won't sell the team. He will just keep beating them down.
Yeah, it's you ain't wrong.
And it's like, well, you won 4 World Series. You should be happy. Is that the goal? To win 4 World Series? And that's it? Because if that's the goal, then you shouldn't be a fan of baseball or any sport. It's just to say, well, we won ours. Like, let's just suck for the next 40 years. That should not be your mentality. Your mentality should be either you do something or we're not going to the game. And they still have the nerve to charge about $200 for a family to go to Fenway Park or
Yeah,
more.
and my thing with American sports that uh, is something that I don't think people are willing to kind of back as much as they should is, and as a Colts fan, you have those times where you have to just kind of be in on the joke that yeah, we're going to suck for a bit, and with teams being rewarded for being bad with like draft picks and the way things go, even with the way baseball's lottery is now, it's still kind of something where you're not going to plummet if you don't win. And even then, they kind of keep you in the loop. If you're consistently bad,
Yeah,
they're not going to like drop you to like pick 10 or some shit like that.
right.
And if you just come out and say, yeah, this is going to be something where we have to kind of start from scratch, and we have to kind of build through the draft and kind of hope that we hit on some of these young guys that we pick up through international markets and stuff like that, and build it back up that way so that when you're ready to really go hard in the paint in free agency and get 2 guys to put you over the top, you have a supporting cast that isn't going to make those expenditures not worth it. Because what they have right now is a bunch of guys that if they went and got Montgomery, yeah, it's going to help. But with what Baltimore and the Yankees did this offseason, I don't think it's going to put them over the top.
No,
But,
but what if
but
shown? What
I
if?
think what you're saying is the message is, oh, we're
Yeah,
going to go for it, and for
yeah,
you to just not
yeah.
is where the anger and the consternation is coming from.
Signing Jordan Montgomery showed that at least you care. Not signing Jordan Montgomery is louder than signing him. And
Yeah.
I will remind you that even though they finished 7 times in last place, they still were in the top in terms of payroll. So a $200+ million ball club is finishing in last place, is doing what Oakland, Colorado, Pittsburgh, name it. all those bad teams do every year, who have considerably less money in their payroll. You could easily buy every player on those teams, and you're finishing where they are. And you don't care. Everybody is laughing at you, and you don't care because you made your money, you won the World Series, and now you're moving on to something else. Whether it would be the soccer team, or the NASCAR team, or the PGA Tour. You're done with the Red Sox, and if that's the case, that's okay. Then sell the fucking team.
Yeah.
Like, cause it's just it's ridiculous to say that we want to promote the fact that we're not giving up and we're going all in and we think we have a good team, and acknowledge that what Heimblum did didn't really help. So let's bring in someone who pitched here to try to help, but not give him any. He didn't do anything. We all know he didn't do anything. And I'm sure he wanted to, and I'm sure he got every power taken away from him.
Yeah. And it goes back to what I'm saying in terms of just messaging.
Yeah.
If you talk to your fans like human beings and go, yeah, we're gonna try to compete, but you got to know that this is gonna be a bit of a slog, and it's gonna be a couple years, and we're gonna take some flyers on guys and hope for the best, and then probably in 2 or 3 years, once we make a little bit of money back, we get some of these contracts off the books, and then we kind of hopefully have a base from the guys we've drafted. And that was something that Bloom was supposed to be a bit of a expert at, that kind of shit the bed on too, was the draft. There's, like you said, there's, if you look at their top prospects, the first pitcher comes in at 7, and then you look at some of the guys that are in the mid tier of their pitching, it's not great.
No, it's
there's
not.
a
And
there's a
he would
lot of
give.
guys that when they come up, they are going to be they are not going to be part of the rotation. They are going to be borderline mop up guys.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I have from here on out for the rest of the season. We can dabble about the Red Sox, but I will not support them in any way.
Hey, saves a segment every week. But speaking of the player that whose departure expedited the eventual disintegration of the Red Sox as an organization, Mookie Betts is my selection for NL MVP, and I'm pairing him up with Yordan Alvarez. So those are my 2 MVPs for the season. I think Betts in that lineup. I think and this is just a hard segue because we're
Oh, that's fine.
as long as entertaining as you going off the Red Sox, and rightfully so. It's something where I think I wanted you to just kind of get the hard stuff out of your system,
Yeah.
and then just respect your wishes to not have to give a shit about the team anymore, and we
Nope.
move on.
Nope. And
But
that's what that's what's so great about me loving baseball is that I don't have to pay attention to my team. I can just focus on another team and then still enjoy baseball.
yeah,
So
those are my 2 guys. I think uh, this is a season where Alvarez really steps up for Houston. He's been a playoff force for so long.
mhm,
Usually those guys that are consistent in the playoffs eventually put together, if he can stay healthy, if he plays 140 games this year, I think that lineup is just good enough for him to get the numbers that he needs to get to kind of just put himself in that discussion. And with the Dodgers, my reasoning behind Betts is you have Freeman and Ohtani around him, and everybody's going to talk about Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman's a guy that people think will steal votes from him. But Mookie Betts, I think, is a guy that has already shown this year is a guy that is just a human rallying point. He can start just a landslide of offense by himself. He is a guy that everybody in that clubhouse listens to, and that for a team that has the expectations that the Dodgers do, you need a guy that sparks belief and not only talks the talk but walks the walk. And I think that's what Mookie Betts is going to do this year, and there's going to be enough people that see not only his impact numbers wise, but what he does for this team that is supposed to win it all. And that I think that's going to factor into their voting patterns.
Plus, he's just a completely energetic player. You know, he really brings out the best of everybody else around him.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I thought about Mookie Betts a lot. He was my number 2, kind of runner up for NL rookie of MVP. But I have to go with uh, Acuna Jr. again. I just think that he is just such a amazing player, and what he has done down in Atlanta, especially, you know, coming back after that injury and still being he's such a superstar and kind of being that next evolution of like the Chipper Jones era for the Braves. I think that he is a guy like Mookie who really can bring out the best in his players. And I think that he is the Braves are going to need him to be at his best to, uh, you know, not just win the division and get past the Phillies, which I think you and I agree that they will,
Yeah.
but also challenge the Dodgers in a 7-game series for that NLCS, which I'm assuming like you, like me, you have the Dodgers and the Braves in the NLCS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that Acuna Jr. is got to be that spark plug. And he's just, you know, he's a great fielder and he's a great power hitter. And I think that he has really taken over this Atlanta Braves ball club and made it his own. And so for my AL is actually maybe someone you would consider coming out of left field, but I think it's a guy that in order for his team to take the next step and succeed, he has got to be the guy. And that's Julio Rodriguez with the Seattle Mariners. And I think that, you know, he is starting to become that guy, but can he actually get there? And he is a guy, unlike Mookie and unlike Acuna Jr., um, he's a guy that really needs to make everything happen for the Seattle Mariners to be not just in contention, but to win the AL West and be a threat in the AL in general. Um, so I think it's a make or break season for him, and if he makes it, I think he's got a shot at winning that MVP.
Yeah. And I agree with you on the fact that the Mariners are only going to not necessarily go how he goes, but he's going to have a huge part in,
Impact, yeah,
especially that offense. Like him batting second and getting on base and making things happen. Like Acuna last year showed just how valuable being a base stealer and a power hitter. If Seattle can get 70% of that from Julio Rodriguez,
yeah,
they're going to have a guy that can really carry them through some rough patches that they usually have towards the middle of the season, especially in that division when you have Texas that is ready to run it back and Houston just as loaded as they've always been.
And that's the thing is that he's got to become the guy that like you're playing the Astros, bottom of the ninth. He's the guy you want up. And I don't know. I don't think he's taken that step yet. But I'm hoping that this year is the year that he does. That he's the one you want with the bat in the hand and the game on the line to give his team a chance to win.
Yeah, yeah. If it doesn't happen this year, if he's not in that mold where he's in the conversation, then I don't think Seattle is going to be vying for much of anything.
Same.
So in terms of the pitchers, I've kind of gone quite chalky in terms of the Vegas odds in when it comes to the Cy Young Awards. I've gone for both Corbin Burns from Baltimore and Spencer Strider from Atlanta.
I said the same.
All right. So, but it's one of those things where coming from Burns more than anything, he's coming from an organization that really made the most of their pitchers, but didn't give them much in the way of offensive backup to a team in Baltimore that has a ton of guys that can score, can just put runs up on the board in bunches. And yeah, he struck out 11 today and he looked great. And I think it's something that you had a lot of those guys in Milwaukee kind of have shaken confidence, despite the fact that they were somehow still scraping out that division. You didn't really feel like any of those guys felt they were going to go into a playoff series and do much of anything. Whereas now he's kind of got that new scenery and new confidence, knowing that if he's not on his A game, he can give up 4 runs and still win. Whereas if he gave up 2 in Milwaukee, there's a decent chance they were going to get shut out and they weren't going to do anything. And if you're losing 3 or 4 games a month and you have an ERA of like 2.5, that's going to mess with your head a bit. And now I think he kind of can just relax and just go for it. And the explanation for Strider is just he's a guy that is going to more than likely lead the league in strikeouts. He's going to be on a team that allows him for plenty of opportunities at wins, which no matter how much the writers say it's not something that matters to them anymore, if you see a guy win 21 games, you're going to kind of bump him up unless his peripherals are dog shit.
Right.
So I think it's I don't know how much input you want to put on these two, but I think it's fairly straightforward.
For Strider, I agree with everything that you just said. So there's not much to say. I think a bold claim that I will say is with Garrett Cole going on the DL, maybe possibly missing the season. Still up in the air, but he was put on a 60-day IL today. I think Corbin Burns is the best pitcher in that division. And
I don't think that's a wild claim.
I think he's better than Jose Barrios. I think he's better than, he's definitely better than anybody on the Red Sox. So we're not even going to talk about that. I think he's better. Yeah, yep. And I think that I don't even know if Tampa Bay has anybody that can.
They just ran out Zach Eflin on opening day, so I don't think they're.
Yeah. So
but we always kind of rush to write off Tampa Bay. They'll find some way to piss us off with their openers and all that crap and squeak out 90 wins somehow.
But I agree with you. But I think this year, more than years past, will be the toughest for them. Because I still have that little bit of hope. Not hope, because I don't care whether. Little bit of inkling that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be a formidable team this year. And I know we say that a lot, and everybody says that these last few years about Toronto, but and they just can't get over. They like the what I think about the San Diego Padres. The Toronto Blue Jays really trip over themselves every year. But I think that if Toronto wants to be taken seriously, and they have a very, very good team, and they know that the Baltimore Orioles are the team to beat, not the Yankees, not the Red Sox, and not even the Rays. It's the Orioles. I think that they need to be at their A game 85% of the season. And I think that they will. However, if you're going to ask me game one, Toronto, Baltimore, Burns, Barrios, I'm picking Corbin Burns.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair assessment. So moving on from the veterans to the rookies, I've gone for another kind of chalky combination, just because I really originally wanted to put Jackson Holiday as my
Me too. I was
as
so
my AL
close.
pick, but I don't. The fact that he went down not as like a last second guy being sent back to minor league camp in spring, I don't think he's going to come up early enough to play enough games to kind of garner that consideration. So that's why I went with Evan Carter in the American League. And despite his opening start implosion, I'm going with Yamamoto in the NL for the NL Rookie of the Year, because it's just something where Carter is a guy that's going to get plenty of reps. That I don't think there's anybody that's going to supplant him in the Texas lineup. And Yamamoto, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to, barring an injury, he's going to get plenty of opportunities to pitch every fifth day. And they have guys that can really pick him up when he has games like, if you look at teams in the past, if they had a guy that came in with the hype and got beat up the way that he did, they just roll over and they'd be using a position player in the sixth inning to kind of just go through the game. The fact that the Dodgers made that game even remotely interesting and got within a run when they were in such a big hole is a testament to them and the way that they're going to back that guy and give him every opportunity to succeed.
And you can't expect him to be like that every time. He's not going to be like that every time. He's not going to go out there and pitch a third of an inning every time or whatever he did. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I agree with you. I did not pick him for the Rookie of the Year, but I do agree with you. And I did the obvious and picked Wyatt Langford for Rookie of the Year just because there's so much hype around him, and I think that even with Evan Carter in that lineup, if Texas, wants to be considered serious, taken seriously, and kind of telling the baseball world like we were not a one-hit wonder, I think he's got to be one of the guys that's like going to be that spark plug for them, and he's just one of those rookies that like there just seems to be so much build up around him that you kind of want to root for him.
Yeah.
So but my NL, and I actually kind of wavered back and forth between Yamamoto and my pick, but I think Jackson Chourio had a good shot for the Brewers to win, and they gave him that contract early in the offseason. Or was it last year? No, it was early this offseason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that we talked about the Brewers, losing Burns is going to really hurt Milwaukee. However, we also talked about how weak that division is. And he's a guy that got to be on his A game to help the Brewers stay in it, and I think that he will.
Yeah, it's and we go all the way back to I think the grandfather of the getting the young guy locked up early, Evan Longoria. It's something where there's certain teams that and we sat here and we kind of poo-pooed what Milwaukee did, but there's not a lot of times where these guys that are getting these extensions at 19, 20, and 21 years old,
Right.
not a lot of them completely just fizzle out and are garbage within a year.
No.
They're getting this money for a reason, and I agree with you that he's a guy that can probably
Yeah.
be put in any of the first four spots in their lineup and make sense, and is going to be a huge talisman for them scoring runs. He's a guy that can really make waves on the bases. He's a guy that has power, and he's a guy that is not that he's kind of above his years defensively as well, where you're not going to really have to overcoach him in that regard.
You also you also have to really believe in the kid to give him a contract extension before anything, right? And controversy aside, that's what Tampa Bay did with Wander Franco. You know, they
Yeah,
gave him that deal because they knew that he was going to be a really special player, and I think that uh, Jackson, the Brewers also
yeah,
believe that about Jackson.
yeah. And it's it's not a bad pick. It's something where if I kind of didn't feel as strongly as I did about Yamamoto, he probably would have been uh, number 2 or 3 on my list, just because Milwaukee is a team that is going to give him every opportunity to succeed. I don't think if he gets off to a slow start, they're going to pull the plug on him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that
And
they gave
yeah,
him that extension with the thought that this is it. Like they're putting the chips in behind him.
yeah,
Not extension contract, but
yeah.
yeah,
Well, an extension to the extent of working off that initial
rookie
deal
contract.
that
Yeah,
deal that he would have gotten coming up
yeah,
from the minors. So we will end this evening on the most innocuous of awards, the manager of the year. But I think it's something where, well, the other ones you can kind of make cases for a decent number of candidates. I think manager of the year is probably the deepest it's been in quite some time,
hmm
and that may be the expansion of the playoffs. But I think a lot of it is there's a lot of guys who have the opportunity to take their situations and kind of not necessarily come out of nowhere, but make potentially a lot out of a little. And in my mind, that is what a manager of the year is. Like Skip Schumacher last year. That's something, a guy that took a team with negative run differential and made a run out of it.
yeah,
That's not something to sneeze at.
right.
And there's a lot of guys, I think especially in the National League, who if more than anything prove that they can not necessarily, and like I said before, like make a lot out of a little, but help some really blue chip prospects improve.
Yeah,
And that's why my first guy in the NL is David Bell, because Cincinnati was my pick to win the division, and that team is just loaded with young guys. And more than anything, they are really stacked on the infield with guys that are going to have a lot of expectations. And as a former infielder, Bell, I think, is a guy that can really just make the most of their talents and just get them to a point where the offense will be there, and then they can go take some of that excess and go get pitching
Yeah,
so that they go from just happy to be here in the playoffs to
a
going and
threat.
winning a series
Yeah,
and then being that kind of next tier team in the National League.
right. Yep.
And you waxed poetic about Seattle before. Scott Service is my AL manager of the year because, well, I don't think I have Seattle as my last team in the playoffs.
Hmm.
And they could very well do better than that, and he's going to be a huge reason for that because of how he's going to not only deploy his pitching staff, but he also has a lot of guys that need to have make or break years. And if he can get more of them to be on the make side than the break side, he is uh, probably the easiest guy to make an argument for in terms of manager of the year in the American League.
Yeah, and he's also not a terrible pick at all. I mean, he's a guy that I think, like you said, and like I said about Julio Rodriguez, these are the people, you know, um, that are going to be important for Seattle's success. And if Seattle wants to take that next step, you know, we talked about it a lot on this show for many, many years of the running joke of always picking
Yeah.
Seattle. And now it's become a serious kind of talk because of how good the team is and can be. But unlike Houston and unlike Texas, they have to work the hardest to
Yeah.
get to where they're going to be. And I think that you're right. He's got to be the guy to really steer this ship for the entire season. And one of the biggest problems about Seattle is they get high, they get hot, and then they crash in August, and that ship just keeps sinking in September until they eventually miss the playoff by 1 or 2 games. So they need to just keep that train moving all season long. And just he's got to let his players know that when they're in the middle of those 4, 5 game losing streaks, it's gonna be okay because their team is good and they will get out of it, rather than letting it sink further into oblivion.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's a good pick. My AO is gonna be Brandon Hyde for Baltimore Orioles, and I only picked that because I think the Baltimore Orioles, despite your team, I think the Baltimore Orioles are going to have the best record in baseball by 1 or 2 games. It's going to be close with the Dodgers, but I do think that they're going to win over 100 games. I think that they're good enough to. Uh, they're clearly going to be the best team in the AL, I think. And I think that, they got a good young roster, and he is going to have such a. Not a challenge, because I think that this team is good to just really win the games that they need to win. But he's gonna definitely have to figure out how to keep these young guys going all season long. And they were very. This really started in the second half of the 2022 season when Baltimore went on that real big run, and they were out of it obviously, but it carried the momentum into last year where they won the division. And I think this year, um, I think they're going to be the best team in baseball next year to Dodgers. And, you know, it's only fair to say that the best team in baseball with the best record has the best manager. Whether that's kind of a stupid statement because, like you made a lot of good points about Seattle's manager, I think, and Cincinnati and Bell. I think that like you know you can't
Sometimes you just
you
don't need
can't
to
ignore it.
overthink
Yeah,
it. And
you
if a
can't
guy
ignore a
takes care of
guy.
that team
Yeah,
in back-to-back years, makes them 100+ wins,
yeah,
you'd be hard pressed to kind of not reward him for such performances.
exactly. And my NL manager of the year is actually in your division as well, and it's a weird twist of how he got this job, but it is Craig Counsell because I did pick the Cubs to win the division, and I think that you know David Ross firing I think surprised a lot of people, including myself, and hiring Craig Counsell surprised even more people. And I think the Cubs are a very good team. They're not great, but they are very good, and especially for that division. And I think that uh, Craig Counsell is a guy that is one of those guys that he's kind of a player manager, and I think the Cubs are going to need someone like that to, you know, get far into the kind of war zone that the NL is going to be this year. And I think that if he can pull it out and the Cubs win the division and maybe a playoff series, I think he's a shoo-in for manager of the year.
Yeah, I could. My thing with the Cubs is they're they're a team that doesn't do anything like off the charts well.
Right.
Like that pitching staff doesn't wow you. That lineup isn't really imposing, but they have enough in both areas where you're going, well, if they just have a guy overproduce in any on either side, they're going to be better than people are giving them credit for. And
Yeah.
I think if they are able to do that, especially from the hitting side, then Council's going to get a lot of credit for that. And if they win that division kind of going away, you'd kind of be remiss to not uh, give him something for making that jump and doing it in the manner that he did, because you may have just seen the writing on the wall, and while people may have been a little bit up in arms over it, in the end he knew what he was doing, and the Cubs may or may not have known what they're doing. So yeah, that could definitely be in play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think the Cubs might be one of the most overlooked teams in the NL, and I think they could surprise a lot of people.
yeah, that it's something where they are currently in the top of the 10th with the defending champs right now. So we'll see how that turns
Shakes
out
out.
when we talk about it next week.
And I know it's only one inning, but the Red Sox are getting no hit. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Hey, you you got to get that final you got to get that final barb in before we play the outro music.
Yep.
And once again, thank you for watching episode Roger Maris home run of Opposite Field, and we will see you next week. Here comes the outro.